All right. Let's hear it for Nia and the worship team. It's great to be ushered into the presence of God. We have been in a series entitled Apostello. We've been talking about what it means to be the sent people of God. We talked about what it meant to be sent by God and how that requires us to take on the character and priorities of God. And then we've been focused on the message that we carry. What is this gospel message? And how does that message shape our lives? And then how do we communicate it well to other people? Ultimately, Apostello is about being sent by Jesus, who was also sent by the Father. But each person that we bring the message of the gospel to becomes an apostle themselves, someone who is sent both to live out the gospel and to share it with others. Today, we have a great opportunity to hear a story about how the gospel message passed from one person's life to another. And so we are going to be talking to Mehul and our own Pastor Manoj Mathai. So, Pastor Manoj, you were in college with Mehul, right?
Yeah.
And you guys somehow got to be friends, and then you had an opportunity to share the gospel with Mehul at some point?
Yeah, so I guess I can start, but we actually got randomly placed together as roommates in a dorm, and so we got to know each other, hung out sometimes, and we just kind of started to share about who we were and what we were in school for.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I know that there was a difference, though, between you guys, because Pastor Manoj, you grew up in a Christian family that goes back for generations, right?
So yeah, my family, in our heritage, Thomas, the apostle, got to the southern part of India, started churches, and so my parents and ancestors draw their lineage and Christian faith back to that time. So I was raised as a Christian, but that's very much a minority in coming from India.
And Mehul, tell us a little bit about your spiritual life before coming to college.
Yeah, so I actually grew up in a Jain household. Jainism is like similar. It's an ascetic movement from India. It's a very small religion. People compare it to like Buddhism, that sort of thing. And there's a lot of Hindu culture in that. And I actually grew up not liking Christians very much in high school. I've had I knew some Christian individuals who were very finger pointing at that time, and I really struggled with that. And so I wasn't very religious back then. I think it was just more of a family thing, and I always felt like there was probably God out there, but that wasn't my primary concern, in high school.
So what was it like then? How did you guys end up talking about the gospel? How did that come into your conversation as friends?
I think it was a lot more life conversations, and it started there as opposed to talking about things from always like a spiritual perspective. I think spirituality will automatically influence a lot of our life decisions because it has to do with like the way we think, psychology, spirituality, and whatnot. So like at that time, it was just a lot of life questions. I was going through a lot of struggles, trying to find a sense of belonging, academically not knowing what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go. Just a lot of those like personal issues at the time, what really is where Manoj was able to kind of step in and just be my friend through that process and just be real, authentic, honest.
I mean, I shared in a lot of those same questions too, and even in my own journey, and definitely not a perfect Christian either. We were even able to talk about some of my own doubts in faith and talk about just spirituality and religion as a whole. But I knew at the time, even in sharing some of your interaction with Christians, initially it wasn't a very great experience, right? You want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I just, I felt there is one particular individual, which, when I look back, it must have been really hard for him. But he was very much like, he would tell me like, oh, like, don't do this, don't do that, don't curse. I curse like a sailor. And he was just very much like telling me what to do or what not to do. And I'm like, yo, you have a choice to not hang out with me. You don't have to hang out with me. So I don't know why you're hanging out with me and then telling me what I should or shouldn't do. Anyways, I kind of led this on, but I think the final breaking point with this individual was one time I asked him, like, hey, so you believe that if I don't believe what you believe, I'm going to hell? And he's like, well, that's what the Bible teaches. And I'm like, and I was like, all right, like we were in my car at the time, and I'm like, you can get out my car now, you know? And it was like one of those, right? Really, it was like a sour moment. And I think for me, I was just being, I asked for that, right? But I was just being like that towards him because I just struggled with how Christianity has, historically had this like finger pointing sort of tradition. I don't want to call it a tradition because I don't think that that's part of who Christ really is, but I think that's how it was practiced. People would finger point, telling you what was wrong and what was right to justify what they feel or what they believe. And I just, I struggled with that tremendously.
You know, I think you described, Mehul, one of the greatest fears we have as Christians, where we're trying to communicate the gospel and somehow it comes across in the worst offensive way, or we say it the wrong way. What was it that ultimately caused you to believe the gospel?
Ultimately, God, like God coming into my life in a very like super existential way. A friend, we went to a campus by the sea, which was through InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. It was like this week of Bible study. And I started learning who Jesus actually was, like the fact that he fought for people who were like overlooked in society, the fact that he was an advocate for the lesser, you know, and he was against the corruption. He was against the finger pointing, and that spoke to me. That spoke volumes to me because I'm like, the whole time I thought Jesus was what, you know, these representations of Christianity, you know, what these people around me had said about Christianity, at least, or that was what they modeled, but that's not who God was. Wow. And so and then I had a very esoteric moment where like I felt like the weight of the world. A friend had prayed for me on like the last night of this, you know, week-long journey, and I felt like the weight of the world had lifted off of me, and I just felt like light shining all around me. It was just like this amazing moment.
Man, so when I hear you describe that, it reminds me that while we may carry the message and we do the best we can, ultimately it's God who opens a person's heart and causes them to understand and believe the gospel. Absolutely. It's that encounter with Jesus himself. We get to be a part of it, but Jesus is the one who's doing the work, right? So tell us a little bit about what your spiritual life has been like since college.
So I would characterize it by the prodigal son. And honestly, it's this constant like tug of war with me and God. It's always been like that since since the time I came to faith. I feel like, yeah, I think I've just always ran away and then come back and ran away. And it's always this constant battle with my old self and this new self that I kind of idealized and who I'm supposed to be. And I fall victim to the same thing that this individual back in high school was doing to me, right? Which is the finger pointing, because I finger point at myself and I'm telling myself, hey, I'm supposed to be this, I'm supposed to be that. It's a constant battle. And that's been my faith journey since. So yeah.
Pastor Manoj, how do we resolve that feeling of kind of pointing the finger at ourselves and kind of self-condemnation? What does the gospel have to say to that?
I feel like Jesus and how he modeled just in the open arms in this prodigal son story, right? That he is always with us and in wanting to say that, you know, he understands where we're at, which is often far from him or lost in our own hang-ups or our own habits. And Jesus welcomes us in those times to be real. I think one of the things that I found in even our talks back from college or even now, you know, we're often able to just share about, hey, this is something I'm struggling with and I need prayer for, or this is something that, you know, I need help on, or, you know, what are your thoughts on this? I think that ability to be open with Jesus and that he welcomes us even as we struggle, that is really the good news. And as we turn to him, he really shapes us from the inside out from there.
It's fantastic. So that we are accepted by Jesus because of what Jesus did, and then he's the one working on us the whole time.
That's right. And beyond that, sorry, I was just going to add, it's not just that, and it's that, but it transcends beyond that, because it's like, I look at it like almost like the pay. I was talking to Manoj earlier, but the pay it forward sort of mentality, where your life is the testimony you're telling is your testimony, meaning what you can attest to. And I just feel like a lot of times there's this pressure to testify to things that we ourselves are having a hard time believing. And instead of just being authentic and just saying, I struggle with the same thing, and which is something Manoj modeled for me in college, which was, dude, sometimes I don't know if I'm believing. This could be completely wrong. I don't know if it's right or not. But this is what I've chose to believe. And in my choice to believe this has actually made a difference in this way. And he can actually attest to that. And I think that was really, like, that's part of it. I think that was such a big thing for me, is like, just be authentic about where you're at and what you can actually speak to, and then pay it forward from there, right? Because from there, I look at it like, I'm hoping that whatever work God has done in me and my authenticity, through that, if I'm able to just be that authentic with others, then that itself will be what he's trying to do.
Well, it's been great getting to know you, Mehul, at the Bible studies. You know, you raised great questions there. And I know that you work in both business and you're an artist, a music artist. Do you see opportunities in your work to share your faith, or with colleagues in your work?
People are struggling on the day-to-day in their jobs, like feeling a lack of ambition, feeling like a lack of engagement with their current, role or company or whatever it may be. You need to speak to that. You need to speak in those dark places. And I'm using music to do that. That's what I feel that he's doing in me now at this point.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And you're a newlywed on top of that. Yeah. Praise God.
That's right.
Right.
I joined the Ring Club.
Yeah. Well, Pastor Manoj and Mehul, it's been great talking with you. Thank you for sharing a bit about your story and the lessons that you learned about what it means to live out our faith and to share our faith with others.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue our study called Apostello. We're going to hear now from the Word of God from our own Pastor Manoj.